make this as fun as possible. And I think at the heart of asking us...
Sorry.
Oops. At the heart of asking us what really joins this country together is how do you connect cultures, sort of cricket, food, and a whole lot of other things. What is really something that constructs India as a nation? Is there even any such thing? And do we have to look at the intangibles of culture to find clues to our nationhood? This is a particularly interesting question at a time when I think globally what defines nations and national identity, I think, has become a huge talking point. So let me quickly introduce the panel from left to right. Rajan Navani is the head of Jetlines and wears both hats, has spent a number of years in the United States of America working, among others, with NASA as well, and is now looking specifically at innovation and digital technology in particular. Hindol Sen Gupta is just back again from New York and Oxford, is an author and a writer at large. Suvir Saran has also just left home in New York to come back to Apna Desh, is a very well-renowned chef, is just opening a new restaurant in Delhi. And in some ways, all the three people we have on stage would in some ways call themselves global citizens and in some ways are here as Indians. And I think the interesting question is what makes us Indian, what makes us global, and does the answer lie in these cultural commonalities? Suvir, let me start with you. Food can be a great unifier. Sometimes in horrific ways, to the extent that there is no escaping Shahi Paneer now wherever you go. Butter chicken, the sort of Punjabification of India is complete, but the reverse is also true. There are probably no parts of India where you can't get a doshe or an idli, and so on. So do you think that food has created a kind of dominant homogeneous culture of one part of India dominating the other, or do you believe that it has actually created that kind of heterogeneity that we actually call our defining characteristic as a nation?
I think it's a conundrum because there is a dominant mediocrity that takes over all cultural genres, including cuisine. And in the Indian context, idli, dosa, butter chicken, dal makhani are the dominating factors, but there's layers and layers of discovery to be made. But as identity goes, yes, family in Bengal will be very proud of their Bengali cuisine. Family in Uttar Pradesh will be going after this hing zire ka chauke ka cuisine and Kashmiri thereof. But I think in India, we get lost in the dominance of these four dishes that are iconic in a very sad way. And
dal makhani,
butter chicken,
dosa,
paneer, idli.
Dosa, idli, paneer.
Even they've taken over. And Jaini pizza.
Jaini pizza is
everywhere.
Is everywhere?
Everywhere. I was shocked that even in...
Any other sort of notable dishes that we've missed that really identifies Indian? Biryani?
Chicken Manchurian. Biryani for sure.
Chicken Manchurian is a very important one.
Manchurian everything.
Sweet and sour?
Sweet and sour faded away.
Vegetable Hakka noodles?
Hakka, yes. Hakka, yeah. Hakka
I have seen in small towns of not even towns, small villages of Uttar Pradesh. Hamlets, a ready, a vendor, a street vendor selling Hakka noodles inside a bun with a aloo tikki.
No, they're doing it everywhere.
Like, is that the new nation?
Unfortunately, mediocrity is the new Indian cuisine. And
I thought you were going to say mediocrity is the new Indian nation, and then we could all get slammed on Twitter for the rest of the day.
And it's also global. Mediocrity is shining globally, and people have become very parochial in their food sensibilities as well as their identities politically and culturally.
So are you basically saying, because the conversation that we're supposed to have is how our cultures connect us, that what connects us is our mediocrity? That's like really depressing.
Our food fascism connects us to our global fascism.
Okay. So let me then take that to Hindol, because what I didn't discuss with Suvir is the way food has divided us. And food has become very political. This is a country where, in the name of beef or rumors around beef, people have been killed. And there are, once again, very distinct cultural disparities. Now let's talk about what makes us different in different parts of the country. So if you go to Kerala, you go to the northeast, you go to Goa, this is a place where, where they can't even understand the fuss over beef, for example. So is food today more political than you remember it being?
No, I think food has always been political. In fact, as you know, is often taught to all of us in academia, everything is fundamentally political. We make this assumption that some things are political and some things are not. But we are, as individuals, as human beings, political, inherently political. And just to take off from what Subir was saying, food is only a marker to our other anxieties because we fundamentally lead anxiety-prone lives. And I think I was just saying this at a different session. The fundamental mistake of globalization always was that it believed it could paste over uniformity over a large number of people. If you wore Levi's jeans, if you ate burgers from McDonald's, you would be the same. We know today now in 2019 that is patently untrue. And we have to rethink globalization, and indeed we have to rethink food by celebrating the individual in the global, so to speak. So if you go to London today, where I was living in Oxford and London, where I was living for the last 1 year, you will see the celebration is a globalization of the local, so to speak. So each restaurant doesn't claim anymore to be an Indian restaurant. It would then, bring it down to more micro terms and say a Bengali restaurant, but maybe even within Bengal, a particular type of restaurant. So the celebration of the localized individual in the global is the way we must rethink globalization.
So the larger point that you're making is that globalization has flattened out a cultural sort of richness, as it were. It's run a bulldozer over our diversities, and those diversities are pushing back. They're pushing back as countries, and they're pushing back as regions. I mean, would that be a fair summary?
Yeah, absolutely. Only just with one caveat. This will be an anxious period, and the managing of this pushback, as you call it, is going to be difficult. It's going to be difficult in every part of the world. And how we negotiate this anxiety of the pushback will determine the future that we have. I mean, let's talk about climate change, for instance, integrally related to the food issue, right? Well, climate change actually cannot be discussed in a holistic way, even though people think it is, because climate change means very different things in Dhaka and Norway, right? It means different things to different people. So that is a very important marker we must never forget.
So Rajan, let me ask you, like the elephant in the room question. India, to that extent, is an illogical construct as a nation because there is no one thing, and I think that's why we're here to have this conversation. There is no one obvious thing that binds us together. It isn't one language. It isn't one religion. It isn't one food type. And so, other than a kind of shared and that too evolving history, when you travel abroad, what is that one thing that you think makes an Indian stand out from a non-Indian? Is it really as cliched as the love of cricket? And that would also be many other nations. So,
yeah, I think today the way Indians are perceived globally is very different from the way it has been in the past, right? I think, if you look at, the accomplishments of the Indian around the world, right? Especially we just take America, where over 3 million Indians living in America or Indian Americans and accomplished in every sphere of life.
Yeah.
You look at it in politics, you look at it in tech, you look at it in food, you look at it everywhere. So I think the strength of an Indian coming out through their capabilities is something that now has begun to be recognized. Coming to the more subtler aspects, what you said, cricket and things like that, so we come from a third generation family business where we started originally with textiles and, roti kapra makan as the deliverables. And in the new digital businesses that we've been building out over the last decade or so, we looked at interest-based communities and said, are there 600 million people in India who love cricket, right? And really, how would they engage with cricket, right? So we have a cricketing gaming destination with Sachin Tendulkar, and we have millions of people who play that, not only in India, but others around the world who will, recognize the Indian power of cricket around that. It also, I think, becomes very inclusive in terms of, the unity that comes together across diversity, because that was what you were talking when it comes to, something like cricket, it comes to music, Bollywood, and even mindfulness. We find, yoga today is localized differently in America from Sweden to what it was originally in India. So I think the impact of India globally is around. It's very different.
So 2 points there. I'll come to the yoga and the turmeric and the pumpkin spice later. It actually makes me mad because I think it's just like cultural appropriation of the worst kind. But more on that later. This perception of Indian Americans. Let's take that as an example. The Howdy Modi event that just happened, in many ways, more than even being about Modi and Trump, was really about the Indian American community. And there are certain sort of truisms that today define the Indian American, or let's say the Indian migrant anywhere. Industrious, hardworking, a kind of model immigrant. So where have these Hindol cultural values come from that seem to sort of define us? You know, we love taking exams. I mean, I remember there was a time when the government tried to scrap board exams. One of the governments, I think it was the previous government, tried to scrap board exams, and all the parents were like, no, we want the board exams, right? So there is something intangible about these so-called modern Indian values. Where does that come
Let's take the
from?
Howdy Modi example, you know, and I think that's a very powerful example. If you look at diaspora theory, which is a whole theory in itself in academia, well, diaspora theory, when it is considered, countries, post-colonial countries like India, have always, in a sense, oversimplified what the diaspora meant. So it's all the things you were talking about. Well, in America, Indian children take great spelling bees. You would have heard every year there's one Indian kid who wins the spelling bee, and so on and so forth. And that, in a sense, was the example of the industrious Indian, so to speak, right? But there is a shift that has happened in the last 20 years. And that shift is the industrious Indian overseas has also become the political Indian. So for the first time, you're seeing diasporas, in a sense, go at war with each other. And you will see this happen again. And you will see this happening between the Indian diaspora versus the Pakistani diaspora. You see it in the attack that happened in the Indian High Commission in London just a few weeks ago. You'll see it in America. You will see that battle being played out, as it already is, in local politics. So today you see, different parties and different politicians in the US and the UK take sides on Indian politics.
So, but let me
So the
interject-
Indian diaspora is political now.
So that's a very interesting point, but I want to interject there because my sense is that the Indian diaspora is probably much less political vis-a-vis the subcontinent than we are. So, for example, if you're in a third country and you find another diaspora who speaks the same language as you, who broadly eats the same food as you, who relates to the same music, perhaps you're not as hostile as you would be in the othering of that community from Delhi.
So I think what you are saying was patently true even a few years ago, a decade ago, but that has changed and is changing because the interconnectivity. See, there was a time when you left your homeland and you went away to, I remember friends of mine who left from Calcutta right to the US. They went to study in a college in US. They could only call their parents once a week, but that connectivity has really been bridged. Today, if any prime minister speaks in the home country, that is as much live for us in India as it is for everybody, every Indian around the world.
So I want to put that
So
to
that
Sudhir
has
and
bridged.
Rajan. I think that's a really interesting point, how technology has actually changed the sense of, what home is. And also the fact that you can today do a WhatsApp call wherever you have a good Wi-Fi connection is probably enough to stay connected. It isn't like, 20 years ago when I was studying at Columbia where actually you needed a phone plan to call home. And it's so much has changed just in those 2 decades.
So you and I were in New York together,
Yes.
beginning our lives. The Insta generation has actually brought things in a level, it's only brought us backwards in some ways, but it has connected us to the motherland. In America in the 90s, we were craving things that didn't exist either in India or anywhere else in the world, but they were in our heads. Today, Jenny Pizza is demanded in New York. And in also, butter chicken buns. People are now making parathas with butter chicken and dal makhni because they're seeing it in television shows in India and they expect them in New York City. So the Insta generation, as you said, it's everything
Butter
is everywhere.
chicken buns.
Butter chicken buns. As I open a restaurant,
Please
again,
do not serve butter chicken buns.
Well, the butter chicken will be in some way or the other. People don't come to restaurants if there's no butter chicken on the menu. I've been warned by all the PR people and all the industry leaders that you have to have butter chicken. But the Insta generation now has the pulse on everything that's happening across India, political, cultural, cuisine related. We are all connected. And I think that's also led to people being more guarding of their own cultures and their idiocies. And that's protecting them.
So we're still left, Rajan, with the question of what binds us together. Is it a shared vision for the country? One could say that, but then, politics has perhaps never been as argumentative in India as it is today. I don't think, earlier it was okay for two people to have different political affiliations and still be pals. I think you're seeing less and less of that, both in India and countries like the United States. So I think Hindol makes an interesting point about how your political identity has come to define you much more than I think it did 20 years ago. So what is binding us as a nation? I think we still haven't been able to answer that question.
Yeah, I think the word that we call patriotism, right, is what you rightly said,
Yeah.
is shaping out very differently today. The first identity, if you ever looked at someone, is whether it's the religious identity, which used to probably be that, but as generations are changing, especially if you look at America, right, we were talking of, whether they identify as, as Indians or as Pakistanis and others, they're Americans first, right? And if you see them, the way they are, behaving or the kind of things that they're doing, they're identifying with that homeland, which is different. So I think in India, really the need for a better livelihood, I mean, even today, economic development, I don't think there is anyone, you look at who's expecting a life for their next generation worse than what it is today. Right? So we are still in that one phase where economic development, where the need for a better livelihood actually connects Indians, in a matter that nothing else does. While you will compete with each other and you look at it. So if we are able to create upward mobility of skills, create the right ecosystem for people to be able to earn that livelihood, I think we'd be able to create a country that will move beyond a lot of the other discussions that seem to keep drawing us and taking us back. And particularly in digital, Barkha, what you were saying is that cross-border, today that influence is a lot more. People can't go across borders. I mean, the way we are looking at it.
But ideas can. And
data, and then you'll have new challenges coming with data and all of that. So it's a very interesting time in the world where a lot is changing at the same time.
So in this churn, Hindol, language is something that is also now ferociously political. And a lot of other countries have the benefit of a language uniting them. And, we are in the midst of a really fierce language debate. It tends to surface every few years. It seemed to me that the Prime Minister settled it by speaking in multiple languages at that Howdy Modi event. But then you do see the push for Hindi every now and then. You do see it. You do see looking at English as a kind of outsider language. Where is that space between being post-colonial, but not rejecting the advantages of English, and clearly there are many for Indians in the international stage, upholding diversity of not just language but of identity, and then the very sort of real politics of a kind of North Indian domination of Hindi as this sort of link language. I mean, you do see this push every few years, and perhaps Bollywood has contributed to it without even meaning to.
I believe English is as much an Indian language as any other. Indeed. I have always believed that. And I'm Bengali. We come from a tradition of proud multilinguals, not even bilinguals, multilinguals, right? However, there is a demographic issue here, right? If the North continues to essentially have more people, there will be an impact. There will be hundreds and thousands of people who will travel to other parts of the country. And I mean, Calcutta today has become as much a Hindi-speaking city as it is a Bengali-speaking city. Now, my parents cannot even imagine that, because to them, Calcutta is the icon of the Bengali-speaking people, right? And that's our homeland. But it's the truth, there are as many people speaking Hindi there. But let me say this. I think fundamentally, any time that language is pushed as a coercive measure, when you try to push it, the pushback will be very, very strong, because it's a key marker of identity in a world where we are struggling to find identity markers. And I must say this is a wonderful story. I was telling my friend Chetan Bhagat, in London, that the great poet Ramanujan once said that Sanskrit and English were father tongues to him. Whereas the vernacular languages, the southern Indian languages which he had grown up with, were mother tongue. And he said the mother tongues brought us close together, whereas the father tongues put us aside, and distanced us, because those were formal languages. And I asked Chetan whether he and I and people like us, we should think of English like that. And he said something very interesting. He said, well, actually, it's like the wife and the mother, and in the Indian tradition, you better not choose, And I think there is a very wonderful anecdote in that that you cannot choose. We should not be forced to choose.
But let me sort of open the scope of this debate by saying that there is also a whole generation of us that are not sort of polyglots in the way that we would have liked to be. Because, Suvir, especially I think at the age when we went to school, our parents had this notion that English was the language of being progressive. English was the language of upward mobility. I think it also has something to do with Delhi being this refugee city where many people came having left everything behind, and English was embraced as sort of this language of economic aspiration. So I personally feel that if I hadn't become a journalist, I don't even think that I would have the kind of proficiency with Hindi that I have today. And that came because I had to talk to people who could not understand me otherwise, but I can, as I say, only dream in English.
I dream in English.
Yeah.
I create my recipes in English, but I taste in Hindi, and and I sing and dance in Urdu. So I think the refinement of taste is what Indians are connected by. I think across all our language divides and our political divides, we eat, we dream about food, we crave flavor, and we lust after pleasure almost in the same way. We want food that's bold, that's layered in flavor, color, texture, temperature, contrasts of all of these things, chap and bhog, in different forms across the different regions of India, including Islamic homes, is that passion that unites us. At the table, we forget what divides us. Our languages are forgotten, and how we eat with our hands, licking our fingertips, or maybe even going all the way to the armpits sometimes, as the sauces drip. We become one. And I think the food does unite all of us. And language, I think that I dream in English, but when I want to be romantic, I think in Urdu. So I think because we've grown up in India, we have the luck of knowing little bits of many languages that then show us the snobbery of being polyglottish in our own way.
You know, to my point on better livelihood, I still remember this one episode where we're sitting in this, cab kind of a guy, and we were talking, just generally, and he said, I want to send my kids to English medium school, to what you said. And, he said, why? He said, because, everyone who sits at the back of the cab, he speaks in English, right? So the guys who are, if I want my son or my child to sit at the back of the cab and not be a driver here, he needs to know English. So, this is, I don't know, the conditioning or, that English first kind of a thing. And the second point, no, I think it's changing, but even today, I think at the end of the day, when you go into globalized, into a more globalized world, you're trying to do business, the English as a language definitely, gives an edge. But to your point, what language we communicate externally, I think one thing which will never change is the language with which you talk to yourself. I mean, we forget, right, that in every time we are talking externally, we are also communicating with ourselves, and we are using a language. And I think that, whether it's the mother tongue or whatever language you normally are conditioned with early in life, you continue, for the rest of your life. So I don't think that can change very easily.
But here's what I think is happening, Hindol. I think that there is a coincidence between class and language, especially when it comes to English. And therefore, English becomes, okay, the language of aspiration. But then, just like your politics is pushing back against the old elites, I think there's also a language pushback. And therefore, that guy who's sitting at the back of the cab, today that guy politically is perhaps being more focused on or more celebrated than the guy who owns the car. So how does that play out?
Well, let me say this. I think you're absolutely right. There is only one point that I want to make, which is we have to let people choose, because I think it's highly unfair. Many of the people you're talking about who pride in their vernacular skills and not being able to speak English, they are in positions of power today, right? And I think it's highly unfair for them. It happened in Bengal, where the CPM actually, taught or ensured that generations were taught only in the Bengali language. And that's why the state, a lot of them couldn't find jobs. So for me, or for people like us today, who have had all the advantages of knowing English, what would our careers be? I ask all of you, if we were not proficient in English, to tell others who have never accessed the language, never had that opportunity, that no, somehow vernacular is better, is just patently unfair. It's unfair. And the people who are saying this today, they're in positions of power. They're not struggling in the market. they're in positions of political power, every kind of power, business power, what have you. So I am very proud. I dream in English. I'm an employer in English. I'm an employee in English. I'm a lover in English. But I'm a son in Bengali. I am a son in Bengali. So.
But the point is that, you have identified these two languages. What do you feel about Hindi?
No, I love Hindi. Look, I mean, one of the great things that this great, look, when we were living in Calcutta, we used to think of Delhi as this Punjabi city. My father used to say,
Hey, be careful. How many? There are two of us Punjabis here. Okay?
my father used to say,
Sindhi was not
you
far
know,
behind.
all the
Sindhi was not far off.
we have to go to Delhi, and then every day we'll have to eat chole, and who
So
eats
it's the
chole?
revenge. So that butter chicken
Yeah.
and all
And
the
we love
Bollywood
it.
and all the Bollywood songs you're saying
Absolutely.
is the revenge of the Punjabis.
Indeed.
Yes.
And I truly today, if I close my eyes and die today, the only home I will think of is Delhi. This city has embraced me. I have embraced this city. So I am today, I think of myself as a Dilli wala today, right?
Okay.
And I have embraced Hindi. So I see no contradiction. I'm fluent in Hindi. I'm fluent in Bengali. I'm fluent in
Yeah,
English.
sure.
Right?
So
Delhi doesn't speak Hindi. Delhi speaks Hindustani.
Sure.
Which
Yes.
is a
Sure.
language unto itself, and which is a very inclusive language and identity. Because if people who speak Hindustani are people who are not prone to dividing people into isms. And I think that's the old Delhi that I miss. It's a Delhi where you can have a mother tongue, father tongue, and multiple mothers and fathers.
Okay, I want to open this up. What are your experiences what are your markers for identifying as Indian? Pallavi?
Do I need a mic or am I loud enough?
No, Mike is
There's a
coming.
mic coming, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think in the generation that I was growing up in, which is similar, what made us Indian, or what I sort of believed made me Indian, was not Bollywood, and was not dosa or butter chicken,
Or
and
cricket.
was not
Not
cricket.
cricket.
Yeah.
What it was this old hoary cliche of unity and diversity
Correct. Yes.
and
Equal
pluralism,
liberty.
and the
Yeah.
fact that that is what, as Indians, made us really unique, that
Yeah.
we were not the same, we were not the one religion, the one ethnicity, the
Yeah.
one language model of European nation
That's right.
states, but we were this new experiment in
Old
diversity
experiment.
that would somehow create a unified tapestry out of all this beautiful multiplicity. I feel that that is what used to make us Indians. I don't know what it is anymore. More and more, I feel that it's more about, a particular religion and accepting that particular religion as the basis of our culture and identity. That's the kind of direction that we're going in terms of what it means to be India and Indians, which I think is superbly unfortunate and essentially disenfranchises and alienates me in terms of identity as an Indian, because it goes completely against what I thought an Indian was. And the second point was to the language point, where I do not think that there is any inevitability in a larger demographic needing to impose that language as the national language. I say this having lived 4 years in Indonesia, which also comes from a huge amount of plurality. And as a nation state, it chose to make Bahasa Indonesia, which was a very, very minority language for everybody, as their national language, specifically because it did not favor Javanese, which was the demographic majority language as the country, so that you could not then accuse Javanese as being
Majoritarian
exactly.
Yeah.
So they actually engineered. You were saying that it cannot be forced. They managed to do it, and today 99% of people in Indonesia speak and write Bahasa Indonesia. But yeah.
So this is a really interesting question, and I want to take it to the panel. I think the point is that in many ways, this shared, we heard a lot of this on Modi's trip to America about shared values. And if there's any one shared value between America and India, more than democracy, where you can structurally argue that, which country is stronger, etc., a separate debate, it is this diversity. It is the fact that there is no one obvious sort of identity. I'll start with you, Hindol, that creates this nation, except that diversity. That diversity is its uniqueness. And are we in danger of losing that amid talks of Hindu Rashtra, even if Hindu is then explained as a cultural or an ancestral identity, as it has been, and not a religious identity? But does that, in a sense, not diminish our sense of selves as diverse, as proudly being able to say we are the most diverse country in the world?
So I don't want to get into the politics of it. I mean, politicians, I'm not a politician. Sure. I don't want to answer for what politicians say. But I want to just make one sort of, caveat point. I completely agree that the diversity of India is something truly enriching for all of us, not just you and me, but for every Indian. But I do think that some people have a valid point, and they are not the politicians. I'm saying some people in our country have a valid point where they want a sort of recognition of some kind that, in a sense, because this country was majority Hindu and Hinduism itself, even till today, no one can really tell you what Hinduism is. It's very hard, and it's very, very hard to drill down. I mean, even the word Hindu, as you know, is a borrowed word. I mean, that wasn't the original word. It is that inherent open source software-ness of Hinduism that allowed this superstructure, this political economy superstructure of diversity to flourish. And that, I think, is truly to be treasured. It is why we are not like some of our other neighbors. And I think that credit ought to be given. But that doesn't mean we take a majoritarian route. These are two entirely distinct things. I don't think they're considered distinct in the polemical debate that we usually have. And I think there's been a lot of academic work about this, but I think when a polemical debate is had in a political arena, this distinction never comes out. I do think there is some merit to argue that there has been a great contribution of the open source software, so to speak, nature of Hinduism in keeping up and allowing this diversity to flourish, and that should be maintained.
Suvir?
So,
Rajan? Yeah.
when we go to food, even if we may have this dominance of one religion over the others in our beautiful secular plural state, our food remains very secular. That horrifyingly mediocre dish, butter chicken, has its tandoori roots.
I really want to eat some butter chicken now.
It's tandoori chicken made in a tandoor that came from
He's really abusing butter chicken. I like butter
I like
chicken,
it too.
man.
I like it too. But it's sad that a nation of 1.2 billion people can only make butter chicken.
It's true.
But that butter chicken has its roots in Central Asia, which is Islamic. So, when we eat, we truly are a nation that's very pluralistic. And our food will, if you go into the history, if you don't become mediocre people who don't scratch beneath the surface, our culture is so rich in our union of many diversities coming together that we will not lose
But
that,
I
hopefully.
think the point that came from the floor from Pallavi Rajan was that pluralism
Is that-
I won't say is endangered today, but is politicized today more than it ever has been before, and it's calling upon people to embrace one or the other version of history, or to look at some point in history which is identified as this is when the outsiders came, or this is when the invaders came, and I think most contemporary Indians have no sense of that. I mean, you don't even look at Rashtrapati Bhavan and remember the Brits, right? So you just think of it as your own. So there is a ahistorical quality that has been there to our pluralism. And I think today we're being called upon to remember history. And then the political question becomes, how far back do you want to go?
Revisiting
Yeah,
it.
I think there
revisiting
must have
history,
been many times in the history of India when such, kind of situations came up,
Yeah.
right? When we suddenly thought we lost a lot and then, started moving in a particular direction. But, to the point that Indol was talking of, if you look at Hinduism again, without any political, there is so much diversity within that, right? There is no one God you pray to, you do different things, and on that bed, was formed everything else around India that you talked of that really connected you. I think at the end of the day, if there is a sense of belonging to India, it doesn't matter where, as long as that is not getting challenged, I think we're okay, right? I mean, the point is that do we still feel that we belong to India? Do we feel Indian at the core? Is that getting threatened? When it comes to larger numbers, are people openly talking about it, not discussing it? Is that a real threat? I think these are all the ways that what would probably define that, right? So it's again, as I said, there's a lot changing, a lot of influence happening due to tremendous number of media, etc. So many things are influencing thought processes. We don't know what is right, what is fake. There's just so much going on today that it's hard to really know, are people really
think that's
changing at the core or they're not?
I think that's a fair point.
Yeah.
Fake news, WhatsApp forward, social media, the power of rumor. We do live in not just in a polarized environment, but with many variables that polarize it further. Any comments or questions from the floor on food, cricket, culture, language? Yes.
Really miss you these days. And all this has been happening in the banking sector over the last 2 weeks. And this big PMC bank issue happened. And it's so sad to see that not one media channel is covering it except Mirror now, who covered it for a few days. And I'm sure if you were around at that time, it would have been very, very different if you were around. Who's going to cover these kind of things? Politicians are not making any comments. Nirmala Sitharaman blames RBI. RBI is not making any comments. 7.5 lakh investors, God knows who's going to take care of them.
So,
But just to add also,
yes.
they also have the right to tell us what to eat and what to wear. And I think that's...
Sorry?
They also have the right to take out time to tell us what to eat and what to wear.
And that's-
So butter chicken,
Yeah.
they decide whether it's butter chicken or
That's
beef or
right.
what.
That's
Who
right.
the hell are they?
Yeah.
And, you asked a very pertinent question in the initial time, Barka, and the gentleman answered, what was India known for? Diversity. I think we were known also to be a very free-moving society, speaking openly, democratic society,
Yeah.
where everybody had a voice. Unfortunately, today, we lost that in the last 3-4 years.
Okay, so 2 points there. Let me try and connect them to what we're talking about. I think one is that are we in a phase culturally or politically where there is a kind of majoritarianism that has permeated not just culture but also thought. I think that's what I would take away from both those comments from the floor, that there is to be one media narrative. If you don't fit into that media narrative, you're anti-national, you're a misfit. If you have a libertarian response that I may or may not eat beef, but if I want to, I will. I may or may not, speak Hindi, but if I want to, I will. And that majoritarianism of culture, of politics, is now spilling into free individual choices, and it's like almost like a thought control police.
So I have 2 comments on this. Number one, do you think, and especially people who travel into the heartlands of India and away from the big cities, do you think some of this anxiety is mostly felt like people like us? Because I sometimes feel, I've done this as an experiment, especially when I went to live outside India, if you don't look at Indian Twitter, you can have all the conversations. You don't feel somebody's, bullying you into saying something. And if you say something, then everybody will charo on you and all of that, right? It's a byproduct of being in a bubble. If I break the bubble, if I say I don't care about what those 2,000 people are saying on Twitter, and it's literally only 2,000 people, in a country of 1.2 billion, and I say I don't care what you guys have to say, I will say whatever I want to say.
But you don't think the mainstream media is also pandering to a perceived dominant narrative?
So I want to come to the media
Yeah.
at a far deeper place than what you're asking. What is the media today? Does a media really exist in India? What kind of media exists? And this is a problem around the world, not just in India. I mean, I was just talking to my friend Niranjan Rajadhaksha, who you also know, very veteran, very respected editor, somebody all of us, in journalism, certainly my generation looked up to when we were growing up in journalism. And we were talking about this, right? That the media, as we know it, has collapsed in India.
agree.
And it has collapsed around the world.
No, I don't agree. I do
But
think
in most
I do-
parts
I
of the
do
world, I
think-
mean, look at-
I do think the one defining difference right now between America and India is its media. Is actually its media, because the point is that it does seem to have more structural freedom than our media.
But do you think that is because at least some of the most powerful media organizations in India are still very well bankrolled? Their finances are very strong.
Are there corporates who need the support of government?
Yeah, whoever it is. But today the Washington Post doesn't have to worry about where its money is coming
I'm
from
saying the
anymore.
same thing. I'm saying
Right,
the same
exactly. Or today Bloomberg doesn't have to worry where the money comes from. It's not true in India. I mean, Indian media is in deep, deep crisis.
Yeah.
So unless Indian media changes, and I truly believe this, I was trained to be a journalist, that's my first profession. Without a strong and independent media, there cannot be a democratic future for any country. That is just not possible. So unless we fix this media part of the puzzle, there is going to be trouble ahead. Because then all the information people are getting are via WhatsApp forwards and Twitter.
So this takes us to a larger question of, Hindol, you make the point that a number of media owners, for whatever reason, because of the nature of our economy, the nature of the arrangement of power in our state, there is that kind of fear factor or whatever. Maybe people, I don't know what promoters think, but Suvir, as a consumer, what do you feel?
As a person who just moved back to India, I was talking to our cook, who's been with the family 30 plus years, and he lives in a village outside of Lucknow, Faizabad, and he said to me, his closest friends still remain the Muslim neighbors he has. They still eat together, and unlike those 2,000 people fighting on Twitter, for him the Hindu-Muslim unity is sacred, sacrosanct. They'll go to battle for it. And somewhere in the bigger cities, our polarity is thriving at a much bigger level. And I think food, our music, our rituals of marriage and dance and education are more together in smaller cities. And but yes, the politicos are breaking us apart. But I think the India is not as. I think our people may outlive the politicians who are dividing us.
Rajan?
Yeah, I think everyone's become very reactive today, right? I mean, and I think that's to your point of social media. That's really where people are getting the news. I mean, if you look at young people, so many of them don't watch television.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very clear, and they don't have the ability to attention span beyond a few minutes. So you're getting influenced by things, and then you're just reacting, right? I think it is time where one went into thought. Like one of our mindfulness platforms is called thinkrite.me, right? It's about really going in, putting a thought in process, affirmation, and then acting and speaking on the basis of your thought, which is really how you should function. I mean, if you're a machine, you should function that way. But today we're functioning more in terms of, reacting, saying things, which are just creating a lot more, I think, not only chaos, but even, confusion around what is the right thing and what is not right, right? And I think that process is actually difficult to control. I mean, and the world is dealing with this.
But there's a paradox there, because you say everyone's reactive. At the same time, I think what was said from the floor was everybody's actually looking over their shoulder and not really speaking their mind, because you don't want to be standing out. No one wants to stand out, or very few people are ready to stand out. And there's a perception that if you stand out, you will pay some kind of price or the other. And this is seen to be especially true for corporate India, where it doesn't matter what the budget is, it doesn't matter who the government is, it's like great, like there's a sense of fear. And is that to do with the fact that there's still too much government in our lives?
Well, look, I mean, I'm a free markets person. I fundamentally believe that all societies are better if there is less government in their lives. This is all societies, not just India. Every society is better with a smaller government, with more individual liberty to their citizens. Now, but we have to understand one subtle but very important point. For large swaths of India, people actually may not want what you and I think of as small government, because the government is not integral in our lives in many ways. But for millions of people in this country, the government is integral in their lives. They do want better services, because there the government is a direct service provider. And when the direct government is seen to deliver certain services, which maybe people like you and me don't care about, we have our private resources to access those services, when they get it via some mechanism and they look back at their own history and say, we've never got this in the past, that interface, which may seem as a minor thing to people like you and me, may have over a period of time lasting impact in those minds. And that we should never ignore.
So
and to those minds, fake news is a wonderful little bearer of good news.
I put it to you like this, that I having been a journalist and being a journalist today and at the receiving end of this all the time, today your viewer, your reader, your consumer wants confirmation bias.
Yes.
If you do
I
not
completely agree.
reconfirm their
Correct.
opinion, you're
Yeah.
biased.
Correct.
And actually it's become a truly suffocating environment for journalists who are neither this side nor that
Or
side.
readers. I have
You
to go
talk
to
about
Washington Post
journalists.
to read her.
Yes.
I mean, even for people who write history, we are in a situation where we cannot write. I mean, the last book I wrote was 500 pages, but there's no point, because
Nobody read it.
No, I mean, lots of people read it by the grace of God, but that's not the point. Large numbers of people took photographs of one paragraph and one line of my book, underlined 3 words,
And either ripped it apart on it.
and said this meant something, which if only they had bothered to read the full page, the paragraph before and the paragraph after, they would have known it's not what they're thinking at all. So this is very dangerous, because there's one thing to say they're competing narratives of history, right?
Yeah.
You write one, Suvi writes another, there's a quarrel in them. That's perfectly fine. They're 2 books. But to say the competing narratives are scraps of photographs taken by your phone of half a sentence put on Twitter, and that's how people learn the history of their country, nothing can be more dangerous than that.
Yeah.
Okay, I have to start taking last comments, but we'll maybe get 1 or 2 questions from the floor. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, can we get the mic here, please? Yeah.
Hi. So I am an Indian American, or I should say American Indian. I've lived there for 20, 30 years. I've lived here for close to that. And I felt the same way growing up in the US, that what was special about there was this unity and diversity. And the challenge that, seeing it as a kid, the method that people thought would actually accomplish both was to dilute the diversity, to try to fit in as a way to accomplish the unity. So to basically, you see Indian people who had changed their name from Pramila to Pam or Santosh to Steve as a way to be more and more American. And now I've been here for the last 15 years, and what I've started to see is so much parallel between the two, where both are competing with this idea where unity has now been conflated with conformity. So whether it's a
Melting
few
pot.
words deciding your identity, for me growing up, this idea of patriotism was always separate from my cultural identity because I was Indian. My individual identity was defined separately. And now we're seeing in both places, whether it's the government or any other majority power is putting pressure on this idea that unity basically means that you can follow a set of rules. You can eat a certain thing and not eat something else. You can have the same moral values as another group, and we'll get to decide. And until we come to the point where we can say the only way to keep the unity and the diversity alive is to celebrate the diversity. We can't do it despite diversity. We have to say that we hold on to that as strongly as we can to make sure that the unity stays intact anyway. And I think that's a message that's missing in both places, which I feel every day.
I mean, I think that's well said, but I do still think, and we'll start taking last comments, that there are certain freedoms that, the question is always asked, is India an electoral democracy, or is it a democracy between elections as well? And I think that question still remains wide open. And I'll just start with concluding thoughts on where you think India is headed. Is there more that keeps us together than what sets us apart? Because it is an extremely, I think the word I'd use is, it's an extremely abrasive time in some ways. You're not able to just disagree and have a laugh and have a drink at the end of the day. Disagreements are much more personal. I don't know if it is, yes, much more amplified, Hindol, on social media, but a lot of it is true even offline now in a way that I don't ever remember it being like that. I'll start with you, Raj.
Yeah, I think there are two Indias, and I think we cannot not talk about those Indias. There is that India that is getting out of poverty. Millions of people are getting transformed to what I, said. And I don't think ever in the history of mankind has a country of 1.2 billion people ever moved from being an underdeveloped country to being a developed country. So we are going to be creating history over the next few decades, and that's a given. On the one side. On the other side, what we are discussing here today, the differences and really how long that will continue, what will it really lead to. At the end of the day, it also comes to how we exercise our own mandate, right? There are large numbers of people who bring governments into power. They bring it in for a reason, and as the education levels, continue to grow and improve in India, I think there will be a better there's a bit of more discerning mind that will enable what is right for India to come. If most people think the way, we are discussing today, it will come, right? So I think it's a transition journey, and I always stay optimistic on India, that's why I'm here. But I think the next couple of decades will definitely take India to a much stronger position globally.
I actually want to agree with him and also add by saying, look, we are going through a huge transformation, and some of the abrasiveness also, let me admit, is also felt by people who have been in positions of privilege. And suddenly there are millions of new people who also demand a slice of that privilege. And we have to accommodate. I mean, it's a question of accommodating a billion more views. And I think of it from the world of Indian mythology. There's this wonderful story of the ocean being churned, by the Devas and the Asuras. Now, you might say the gods and the anti-gods, or the non-gods, so to speak, right? And what are they churning the ocean for? For the nectar of immortality. But remember, before the nectar of immortality comes out poison which can destroy all three worlds. And that's why, Shiva has to hold it in his neck and so on and so forth. That's why he is Nilkant. So I think a lot of this abrasiveness, what Barkha calls abrasiveness, will come out in this churn, which he, very nicely put it. We will get to where we need to get to. We will become a developed country, but in this transition, before the nectar of prosperity comes, there will be a lot of abrasive poison, and we will have to face up to it.
And this abrasive poison that the Nilkant and the transformation all happens around an inclusive table where patriotism that's garbed, jingoism that's garbed as patriotism is disqualified, and people bring their identities, their plurality of thought, actions, their cultural and cuisine forms into the table, and we all are one family. And hopefully that India will sing, dance, and make everyone happy.
Okay, thank you. And I think everyone's having butter chicken for dinner tonight. Round of applause for our panelists. And thank you. Thank you so much.